earlier. You get the information earlier, so you predict the weight earlier. So now let's continue how to implement the weight prediction. Basically, we need a prediction table. So this is our okay. This is our prediction table. Of course, it includes a lot of entries. Each entry will store the information about which way you are going to predict. For example, each entry corresponding to one set. I'm talking about very basic design. Okay? Each entry corresponding to one set, it keeps the information about if you are going to access this set, which way you predict you will have the cache hit, or say which way you will be able to find your data. So, how many bits you need per entry? If I say it is a two-way set associative cache, how many bits you need per entry? How many bits? Just one bit, right? Because you only have two ways, either 0 or 1. And if I say I have an 8-way, how many bits you need? 3 bits, right? You need 3 bits to identify which way you think you can get the data. Okay. So back to I said we can either use PC or either use this to predict the weight. We will use either this or let's just use PC for example. We will use the PC to index the prediction table, and then this indexed entry, it has some information there. It's gonna be the predicted weight number. Okay, this is the how can we link the PC with the weight number, which way you will be able to get the data. So now let's see if we have the weight prediction mechanism, how it will work. There are actually two designs. I will talk about the first design is now because you already have the PC can index this prediction table so that you will be able to know which way you can access during which stage, which pipeline stage. You will be able to know which way you're going to access. During the fetch stage already, right? So that when you go to the memory access stage, back again, assume this is the two-way set associative cache. We have two ways here. This is the data. This is tag. Data tag. So if you already predict which way you are going to access the data, what are you going to do? During the memory access stage, directly go to, let's assume we predicted the first way you will be able to get the data. You will directly go to this specific cache line in this way and send the data to CPU, right? This is pretty straightforward if you have the weight prediction. But what if you have a misprediction? Pay attention. This is just a prediction, right? You make it wrong. You make it a misprediction. What shall we do? Pay attention. When you are using this to predict this way has the data, you are still doing, this is the tag, you're still doing the comparison, right? You cannot skip that. You still need to do the comparison. And if the comparison result tells you they are not matched, what shall we do? This is a misprediction, right? So we have to drop this data, and what else? We should start it over again, right? Because now you don't have any information about either this is a cache miss, or either you should get data from this the second way, right? So we have to drop this and start over again. What does start over again? You have to do the whole cache access again. You use the set index the set. You do the tag comparison with the two ways, and you figure out which one you should get the data. Okay, this is one possible design. Another possible design is, although I know this is the way I'm going to get the data based on my prediction. But I still compare, use the tag comparison, I still do the comparison here. What is the benefit of this? If I still do the comparison, probably when you are fetching the data here, I already know if this is a match or hit, and if it is a misprediction, you don't need to go over this tag comparison again. You can directly go to this specific block to get your data. This is the second design. Which one are you going to choose? Second one? But think about if I have a very high prediction accuracy, this will happen very rarely, right? The misprediction will happen very rarely. Think about the second design. Actually, this comparison with all the other tags still consume energy. Although it does not really affect the performance that much, but it consumes energy. From the power, from the energy perspective, the first one will be better. And especially these days, the prediction, the weight prediction accuracy we can achieve to about 85%. It's pretty high. So the first design is better with respect from the power perspective. And by the way, this is another benefit I would like to introduce. I ask a question here, any other benefit of weight prediction besides the performance, or say besides the fast heat time? What else? What other kind of benefit you can get via the weight prediction? It's energy, right? Because if you got the correct prediction, you just compare with one tag, you get the correct data. So this is another benefit of weight prediction. It saves energy. Actually, this is a very useful technique. Weight prediction is used in all the cache design now. Because it's kind of, usually if we want to improve or say reduce the execution time, sometimes we're gonna pay some extra energy overhead or something. But this is the design that you can get both performance and energy improvements. All right, now let's see our exercise about the weight prediction. For a 1 meg L2 cache with 64 byte blocks and 8-way set associativity, how many weight prediction table entries do you need? This is the first question. The second question is another kind of cache design. Now the size becomes 8 megabyte and the block size is 128B and the 2-way set associative. Then how many prediction table entries you need? I would ask her in this way. What is the size of the prediction table for question A and question B? Let's first do A and B, and then we will go C. Okay? Couple of minutes. It's pretty straightforward, right? For the first one, how many entries you need? Depends on how many sets you have, right? How many sets do you have? The size is 1 meg. Block size is 64. And how many ways we have? We have 8 ways. So this is the number of sets, right? And if I'm asking the size, what is the size? How many bits we need per entry? 3 bits. So this is the size. Okay, second one, same thing. 8 meg over 128 times 2. And how many bits you need per entry? Just one bit, right? Because you only have 2 bits. Okay. Which one has, let's go see. What is the difference in the way that the processor with only 8 KB way prediction table to support the A and B, the cache design in A and B? Let's first go through what is this answer. It is 2 to 20, 2 to 6, 2 to 3 times 6. So it is 2 to 11 times 3. Okay. This is bit. All right. So 8 KB. Is that enough for the first one? 8 KB is 2 to 13. It's enough for the first one, right? So we don't need to worry about that size. You have the enough size for the prediction table for the A. How about B? It's not enough, right? What shall we do? Which means you're gonna have several sets. They're gonna share the same entry, right? Because you don't have enough number of entries. You cannot have one entry per set, so that you need have multiple sets. They're gonna share the same set, the same entry. And what can we design? How can we design the prediction table like that then? For example, we use the PC to index the prediction table, and of course, the number of entries you have in the prediction table does not require all the 32 bits of the PC to index. Remember we talked about how to get the set index. We use the log address mode, the number of sets. Remember that? Remember that? This is the way we are going to index the set. So here we can do the same thing. Use the PC to mode the number of entries in the prediction table to index the entry. It's possible several sets will share the same entry. But when we design this way, the fundamental philosophy is we would like to have the PC that they are going to be used in the very near future, or say they are going to be used at a similar time to be indexed to different entries of the prediction table. Let me repeat it again. We would like to have the PC that's going to be used at a similar time to index to or scatter across the different entries in the prediction table. We do not want to have the PC, or say the PCs that gonna appear at a similar time to index to the same entry. What is the reason of that? Reducing the conflict between the sets, right? Back to this one. This is the same idea. Why we will use the block address to mode the number of sets to index the cache, to index the set, is the same thing. We would like to have the close by block addresses to be indexed to different sets. So that because of the spatial locality, you're gonna have the block with the similar address appear at similar time. So that you would like to have this block to be indexed to different sets to reduce the conflict risk. Similar philosophy here. All right, let's move further. So the third advanced cache optimization design is try to increase the cache bandwidth. Increase the cache bandwidth, one very simple design is just the pipeline the cache, right? I already introduced this idea before actually. We can, for example, we can split the memory access stage into 2 or 3 stages so that you are going to spend like 3 cycles to finish the cache access. Back to this again, batch, decode, execution, memory, right back. The idea is we can split this memory access stage into 3. If we do it this way, of course, the clock cycle time can be reduced, right? The memory access stage, these two stages will not be the bottleneck anymore, so that it will be able to reduce the clock cycle time. This is one benefit. And another benefit is you can have multiple instructions all in the memory stage, or say they are all doing the cache access. Let me draw there. For example, if you have the first instruction here, clock cycle number. So instruction 1, clock cycle number. And how? One, two, three, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And then we can have another instruction. So see this cycle 3. You have multiple instructions. They are all in the memory access stage. And this is also the way we increase the cache bandwidth, right? The cache is going to serve multiple accesses at the same time. Although, of course, there is no structure hazard because they are still in different stages during this memory access stage. So idea is pretty straightforward, and because we can do the pipeline for the cache access, so that back to the discussion I had before for L1 cache, do you remember? What is the associativity for the L1 cache these days? Do you remember? I talked a little bit about the history. It used to be just the direct map because we would like to have the fast heat time. Or say we would like to have the short clock cycle time for the L1 cache or for the processor. But because we can do in this pipeline design, so L1 cache nowadays we are using the high associativity. We use kind of 4-way design for the L1 cache design. Okay. And this kind of cache pipelining technique has already been applied. You know Pentium 3 and Pentium 4, right? As for pretty old machine, like 14 years? It's a long time ago. So like I said, although I say these are advanced cache optimization techniques, they have been there for decades, like 10 or 15 years already. All right. Any disadvantage of this design, of the pipelining? Any disadvantage? I just talk about the benefits, of course, increase the cache bandwidth, reduce the clock cycle time. But the downside of this design is you're gonna have a higher or longer store cycles. I mentioned about this before. Do you remember when I introduced in the pipeline? I mentioned about this. For example, if you have a pipeline store, then you're gonna have 3 cycles or 2 extra store cycles if you have the multiple cycles for the cache access. I'm not going to go details about this again because does not really belong to the topic for this course. By the way, I still have no idea if I'm going to teach 7373 next semester. 7373 is another advanced computer architecture course for master students. And if I'm going to teach that, the topic of that one is about the my pipeline and a little bit about the out-of-order execution. Out-of-order execution, I'm going to talk a little bit in next slide. But for 7373, the major focus is about the processor design, about the pipeline. And this stuff, the things here I said about multiple cycles for the store or something, this will be discussed in detail in 7373. So I'm not going to go details about this one, but you just need to have an idea about the downside of increasing the pipeline stages is it's gonna have more clock cycles for the pipeline store because you have more pipeline stages. All right, this is one way to increase the cache bandwidth. Another way is a non-blocking cache. Non-blocking cache, again, is a very useful technique. It is used in the processor everywhere now. It's a very popular technique as well. So, like I said, all the techniques I mentioned here, they have already been there quite a long time, used very widely. Okay, before I introduce the idea of non-blocking cache, let's go through a little bit about the out-of-order execution. This is a totally new technology too, right? Terminology, totally new terminology. That's right, because this is gonna be the key part of 7373. If I'm going to teach 7373, this is the key. Actually, this is out of control, but I had a complaint before. 73 and 73 and 6363, they are kind of co-prerequisite, or there is no prerequisite between these two courses, right? You can take them both without any, like, you can take 7373 without 6373, right? But actually, the things I talk about in 7373 will be very useful for 6373 for this course. They kind of, the course number kind of, they got some problem about arranging the course number, and actually it's much better to take 7373 before you take 6373. The things I mentioned about the pipelining stuff, actually you can learn them in detail in 7373. Anyway, because of this kind of course arrangement, I have to do some kind of review about pipeline. I would say give you some new idea about pipeline, and also give you some a little bit idea about this out-of-order execution, so that you will be able to understand the non-blocking cache design. So just to give you very high-level idea of out-of-order execution. If you didn't quite understand the detail, that's totally fine. Okay? Just to provide you enough background for the non-blocking cache design. What is out-of-order execution? You already know what is pipeline now. So let's see if we have some instruction sequence like this. Add, space is not enough. Let's say we have add, maybe use node. Assume that we have these three instructions, and assume that these three instructions. Let's still use the simple pipeline design, the 5-stage pipeline. If we are drawing the pipeline information, we know batch, decode, execution, memory, write back. For the second instruction, batch, decode, and batch. Is that correct? Is this correct?
R1 is not done yet.
Load R1, right? So that, what shall we do? You have to store, decode. And what you have learned so far is as long as the previous instruction stores in the pipeline, all the following instructions, they have to store as well. Right? So that the third instruction cannot be batched until cycle 5. Right? This is what you have to learn. But think about, is there any relation between doing the third instruction with the previous two instructions?
No.
No relation. But because the second instruction stores in the pipeline, so that the third instruction, no choice, it has to store. What shall we do with that? What can we do with that?
Just fetch it and execute it.
Why not still have this instruction fetched in the third cycle? But if we do it this way, you're gonna have, of course, next instruction decode, you will have the third instruction doing execution earlier than the second instruction, right? And we call this is out of order execution. What is order here? Order is actually the program order. Okay? And if we're doing the out of order execution, you just have this instruction stores there. Other instructions, you can still continue the execution in the processor, or say the CPU will not be idle whenever you have an instruction stored in the pipeline. Yes?
So is there some logic or something that has to look ahead to make sure that...
Exactly. You're gonna have some kind of oracle or scheduler to take care of all this, because otherwise how can you know this instruction can move forward? You need to first figure out this instruction has no relation with the previous instructions. Then you can do it this way. It requires an extra hardware or extra scheduler to take care of all this. And of course, how to design that scheduler is the key for this course, 7373. It's not that easy. Has some complicated algorithm inside. So of course, in this course, you don't need to understand that. You just need to have some sense about for the pipeline. We can do out of order execution to improve the CPU utilization, or say to reduce the store cycles in the pipeline. Okay, now let's see. If we are doing this way, what will happen to the cache? It will be possible that, let's assume for this instruction, we have a cache miss, okay? The first instruction, we got a cache miss, then it's gonna store at the memory stage for a long time, right? It's gonna store at the memory stage, memory, and memory, let's say it stores there for 4 cycles. This you can consider they are stored there as well because of the cache miss, okay? So what will happen in cycle 6? This instruction, after cycle 5, it finished execution, and it's supposed to do memory access in cycle 6. What can we do with that? What can we do with that? So you can see in cycle 6, we already have the cache is serving the first instruction. So can it be able to serve another cache request? Well, if we are doing out of order execution, we'd beg to do that, right? Otherwise, no benefit. Anyway, you're gonna still start here because the cache can only serve one cache access request. So this is the idea of non-blocking cache. Non-blocking means you can serve multiple cache requests. Instead of just serve one, you can serve multiple. So that you can do the out of order execution. Otherwise, you can even not do that. You still have to follow the program order to do the execution. Okay, so this is the fundamental idea of non-blocking cache, or sometimes we call it is a lock-free cache, to allow data cache to continue to supply cache hits during a miss. So this is the example. If we have a miss here, you can still serve another hit. If this is a hit, you still can serve another hit. Okay, this is called hit under miss. By doing this, you reduce the CPU store time, or say reduce the pipeline store cycles. You can still have the third instruction move on. This is the benefit of hit under miss. And then we can have another even more complicated design. What if the second one is a miss? What if this one also causes a miss? What shall we do? We can further design a non-blocking cache to support miss under miss. Well, it's gonna be complicated, right? Because if this is a hit, you can just finish the cache access, then you are done. But if it is a miss, you have to go to the lower level. You have to record what is the block address, because it's a miss, right? You have to record which instruction requests this data. You have to record a lot of information for a cache miss. For a cache hit, it's pretty straightforward. But for a miss, you have to record a lot of information. Then it's gonna cause an even more complicated design. But we're still doing it. The non-blocking cache nowadays, we still support miss under miss. Or say hit under multiple miss. Yes?
So in the first cycle, when it's a miss, it
First
goes
instruction
to the,
you are talking about?
yeah, first instruction.
Mhm.
When it is a miss, it goes to lower level memory.
Exactly, it goes to low level.
And in the third instruction, it is going to the cache.
Yes.
So then there is no conflict, right? I mean, it
Yeah,
can
if
be
it's a
active.
hit, it's fine. Because you don't need to record any information for a cache hit. You just finish the data access, then it's done. The question is, if this is a miss, you have to go to low level, you have to record all the information about this cache request. For instance, which register, if it's a load instruction, which register will hold the data? And which instruction requested, what is the address? You have to record all this information. So this will require some extra hardware to record this information. It's even more complicated than this hit under miss. But nowadays, we do have this miss under miss, and we call these misses, if they haven't been served, we call they are outstanding miss. Outstanding misses. Okay? So this is the bulletin I'm talking about. Miss under miss further lower the effective miss penalty by overlapping multiple misses. So again, doing this will cause a very high, more complicated design in the cache, or say extra hardware to support the information of these multiple misses. And another downside of this is, because now you have multiple outstanding misses, you're gonna have multiple requests to the lower level memory. What does that mean? You're gonna have multiple accesses or pending accesses to the memory. What does that mean?
More number of cores.
You will require a higher memory bandwidth, right? It will require a higher memory bandwidth, or one way to deal with that to have multiple memory banks. If you have no idea about bank, I'm going to introduce later, just right after I'm talking about this non-blocking cache. So again, miss under miss is effective, although it's more complicated. And this figure I have slide, I have the figure to compare the several designs we have. So the first design is we don't have non-blocking cache. We are still using the blocking cache, which means the cache can only serve one cache access at a time, so that you can see when you have a cache miss, you have this miss penalty to take care of this miss. And when it's done, then you go back and the CPU continues. The pipeline stores is served, and then you can continue. This is the basic case you learned before. If we have the hit under miss, is the example showing here. If this is a hit, then even though you have a miss, it triggers the going to the lower level memory to request the data. And meanwhile, you still can move forward. Of course, this is a out of order execution, right? You already move forward to next instruction. So CPU will still be busy and processing the following instructions, and then you have a cache access, which is a heat. It's still fine. Cache still support this extra heat, and so it's move on. And here maybe you have another cache access that causes cache miss. If you have another one cause a cache miss here, what can we do? You have to store there because you don't have any hardware to support it, to support the another miss. So you have to store here, and here this is finished, then CPU can go back to continue the execution of the first instruction. Okay, this is the second figure. Let's go for the third one, the complicated, even complicated one, if we have multiple understanding misses. So you can see, if you have a miss, doesn't matter, go to the lower level. And then if you have another miss, doesn't matter, go to the lower level. And here, you really need the result to move forward for the following instructions execution. And then we store here. And then when the data is back, CPU is back to work. It's finished, it's not stored there anymore. So for these three comparisons, you can see, of course, non-blocking cache, it increased cache bandwidth. It will be able to serve multiple cache access requests at the same time. And it reduces the miss penalty. Okay? Originally, this is the whole miss penalty, but now you shrink it and further shrink it. Okay. Now let's talk about what kind of hardware we need to support this non-blocking cache. I mentioned a little bit. We need some extra hardware to support to keep the information of the instructions, or say of the cache miss. Of course, you have several outstanding misses, right? You need to keep a record of them, so that we have another hardware design, which is called Miss Status Handling Register, or MSHR. Again, this is a very, non-blocking cache is a very widely used design. You can see almost every cache has MSHR. Okay, probably you just see MSHR. You didn't really see the full name, which is Miss Status Handling Register. So we need MSHR to keep record of the outstanding misses. And if you have any pending load or stores that refer to the same cache block, you can also use the MSHR to find out, to get the data. So this is how MSHR looks like. I think I have a figure in next slide. This slide shows how MSHR entry looks like. Pay attention. This is just one entry of MSHR. Okay? First, it has block address, right? Of course, if you have an outstanding miss, you need to know which block you request. So each MSHR entry should record the block address that you request. And we have the valid bit to say if this entry is valid. We have the issue here is just the same, if the lower level memory access has already been issued or not. Okay, and corresponding to this one block address, of course, you can have multiple requests. For example, assume this instruction requests the block A, and this instruction also requests the block A, and then actually these two accesses can be merged into one entry corresponding to the same block address, right? So that is why we have multiple entries here. And each entry has several fields. Valid is just talking about if this entry is valid. Type here is talking about if this is a load or is a store. Or say if this is a read operation or write operation. Block offset tells you starting from which byte you need to access the data. And the destination here records, if it's a load instruction, it records what is the destination register you are going to put the data. If it is a store, then it's load store entry buffer number. Because I guess you have no idea about load store queue, so just skip that. assume we're just talking about the load operations here, okay? But actually, MSHR also works for the store instruction as well. But because you have limited background, just assume MSHR here, we use it for the load operations. Okay, so now you can see, back to this example, you can combine these two, the first and the second, into these two entries, corresponding to one block address. Okay, so this is the again, one entry of MSHR. Can you just guess a little bit how many entries current processor will have for MSHR? How many entries, or how many this kind of entries? Because this is considered one entry in MSHR, right? Or let me ask in this way, how many outstanding cache misses current processor can support, or current cache can support? Can you guess? No idea? At the very beginning, when we came up with non-blocking cache design, it only supports 4 outstanding cache misses. I would say usually we only have 4 this kind of entries. But nowadays the processor is designing better and better. It can support tens of outstanding cache misses. But it cannot be like hundreds of cache misses. It's in the tens of something. Okay, this is some general idea about MSHR. Now let's see how this MSHR works. Let's see how it works. This is the operation. So whenever we have a cache miss, of course, the first thing is you should go to the MSHR to check if you have already have a record there, they access the same block. This is the figure you have seen in the previous slide. We call this is the one MSHR entry. Key information is here, block offset, and the destination register. So whenever you have a cache miss, the first thing we should do is to check all these MSHR entries to find if you have a matched block address. If you have a matched block address, what does that mean? What does that mean? If you have a matched block address, it means there are already some outstanding cache miss which is requesting the same block as you need, right? So what should we do next? You should insert your information to this small table attached to this block address, right? So then we should go to see if there is any free entry in this part. If there is any free entry in this part, then you can put your block offset, all this information, destination block offset, those information here. If there is no free entry, what should we do? If there is no free entry, what should we do? What does that mean? You don't have enough hardware to support all these outstanding cache misses requesting the same block, right? What should we do? We have to store the CPU because you don't have enough hardware space to record this information. Okay, this is one case. Another case is if we didn't find any matched block address in the MSHR, what should we do? Allocate a new one, right? Allocate a new one. Once you allocate a new one, you have to also fill up the first entry here. This is your first, this is you are the first one to initiate the request for this specific block. So you need to put the block offset destination information there. What if there is no free entry in MSHR? What if all these are full, but you didn't get a matched block address? What should we do? store the pipeline or store the CPU is because you cannot support any extra outstanding cache misses. So that you have to store the CPU. Okay? So this is whenever you have a cache miss. And if you have some part of the cache line is already fetched back from the memory, you already have some data available, then this is what we are going to do. We will first check which load or store, or say just load, are waiting for this data, and then you can forward data to the CPU. So what you can do is, whenever you have the data back, you check, okay, this is the specific block address matching with the data I just fetched from the lower level. So I check which one has the load store, which of this entry requires the data you already have, and then you can forward the data to the CPU and mark this entry as invalid. Okay, and when the last word of the block is available, then you can mark the entire MSHR entry as invalid, or say you can free the entire MSHR entry. Okay, so this is the general idea about how MSHR works. Again, it's very useful and popular, used in almost every cache design. Any questions so far? Today I introduced several advanced optimizations. They are a little bit complicated. A good news is non-blocking cache will not be tested in the exam. Okay, I just want to give you some idea about this advanced techniques. All right, now let's move further. The fifth, remember total we have 10. We have 10 advanced cache optimizations. And now I'm going to the fifth one. The fifth one is still talking about increase the cache bandwidth, or say to support multiple cache requests at the same time. And this fifth one is another very popular one again. We are going to use multiple banks to support the multiple cache accesses. So here is the idea. Rather than treat the cache as just one single block, we are going to divide this block into multiple independent bags so that you can support multiple simultaneous accesses. Here is just one example. A very old processor, again, its L2 cache has 4 bags. Okay, so the idea is instead of just having one huge block, we are going to, so assume that originally this is the one cache, and now we are going to split them into multiple banks. Okay. Originally, you only have one port of the whole big block so that you can only support one cache access. But now because you have separate banks here, so that you can have requests to each bank simultaneously. Of course, it increases the cache bandwidth. But the question is, how can you make sure when you are sending the request to the cache, they are going to distribute to different banks? For example, if you have 4 requests at the same time or at a very near time, similar time, and how can you make sure they are going exactly to different banks? They are not going to the same bank. If they are going to the same bank, what will happen? That's not help, right? This multi-bank design does not help. You're still going to have this resource contention to the same bank, like you treat the whole cache as a big block, the same thing. So the question is, how can we naturally spread the cache accesses across these banks? How can we do that? The mapping of the address to the bank will affect the behavior of the memory system. So it's actually about how can you mapping. Because how are you going to access the cache? Use the block address, right? We use the block address to access the cache. This is what you have learned before. Okay? Now you have the block address. How can you distribute this block into different banks so that whenever you need them, you can kind of scatter them or distribute them into different banks. Any good way to design this mapping? Mapping between the block address to the bank number. What kind of mapping mechanism you can think about? No way? Do you still remember how we indexed the set? Block address, mode, number of cells.
So it's the number of banks now.
The reason we are doing this way is we would like to have similar block addresses or say close by block addresses to be spread to different sets. Same idea here, right? Because of the spatial locality, you will have the block address with similar block addresses, or say maybe just several lower significant bits they change, but they should still share the same high significant bits. For those kind of blocks, they will have a high possibility to be accessed simultaneously, so that we would like to spread them into different banks. What can we do? Use the block address to mode the bank number, right? So for example, if we have 4 banks here, we're gonna have block 0, first blank, block 1, 2, 3, and then we have 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Assume that we totally have 16 banks, then 12, 13, 14, 15. Since the way we are going to map in the blocks into different banks. Bank 0, 1, 2, 3. Okay. This is a very natural way. It's a very simple mapping mechanism. It's called a sequential interleaving. All right, now can you answer me? Does this mean this is one set or one way? You have learned about way and set about cache design, right? How to understand way and set and bank. We usually draw a cache in this way. If it is a two-way set associative. This is second way. This is first way. What is the link here? What is the link here? Let's assume that totally we have 16 cache lines in the cache. And it is a two-way set associative. If it is a two-way set associative, how are you going to put them into different ways? It's the same question about from bank 0 to bank 15. Sorry, block 0. How are you going to map them into different sets or different way? For example, for the first set, we will have block. Which blocks will be mapped to the first set? It's a very fundamental cache design question. From block 0 to block 15, which will be mapped to the first set? Block 0 and block 1. in this design? How many sets? We have 2 ways. We have total 16 blocks. How many sets we have? We have 8 sets, right? So number of sets here is 8. Which mode 8 equals to 0? Number 0 and the number 8, right? So now you can see set 0 is block 0 and block 8. How about set 1? Set 1 is 1 and 9. Let's see what happened here. So 0 and 8 is one set. 1 and 9 is another set. Hopefully, this example helps you to understand there is no relation between bank and weight. First, you can draw a cache in this way, multiple banks. You can draw a cache in this way, multiple ways. But pay attention, there is no relation between weight and bank. Okay, no relation between weight and bank. It doesn't mean for all the cache lines in one set will appear in one bank, and neither all blocks appear in one way will appear in one bank. They do not have any relation. Why? Because this is how the cache will be physically looked like. Okay? This is a physical map of the cache. And what is this? This is a logic view of the cache design. Logic view. For your easy understanding about the cache design, we draw it by partitioning them into different ways. But this is really how a cache will look like. Multiple banks. But bank and weight, no relation. Don't get confused about this. So in the following lectures, I'm still going to use this way to draw the cache because I don't really care how many banks you have. Anyway, this is the logic way to design the cache. Depending on how many ways you have, then we have the number of sets. Okay? Any questions? All right, let's move on. Now I go to the 6th optimization, which is to reduce the miss penalty. This technique is based on think about if you have a large block. We already talked about if you have a large block, it's going to take multiple cycles to fetch the entire block from the lower level memory to the cache. Remember we calculate about the miss penalty? We talk about first you need several cycles to initiate up the connection between the memory and the cache, and then you will have several cycles, depends on the block size, to fetch the block from the lower level memory to the cache. It is dependent on determined by the memory bandwidth. So, but do we really need to wait until you have the whole block fetched into the cache? The answer is no, right? Because think about a load instruction here. Actually, you just need one word. It does not really need a whole block. So why do you block the CPU or say store the CPU until you fetch the entire block? So this is the motivation of this idea. We would like to have early restart. Early restart is pretty straightforward. It means as long as you get the data you need, you can send it to CPU. You don't need to wait until you get the whole block from the lower level memory. So the CPU can continue the execution. And the second idea is based on the first idea, critical word first. So for example, in this block, I just need this part of the data. Why not start, whenever you start to fetch the block from the lower level memory, get this portion of the data early, starting from this one, instead of starting from the first byte. Starting from the byte you really need. Then combine with the first technique, with the early restart, you can send this back, this is going to be the first byte you send back to the CPU. So you will be able to restart even earlier. So this is the idea of critical word first. Yeah, when you have this data ready, you send it back to CPU, you still can continue your fetch of the other part. Pay attention. You still need to load the entire block into your cache. Even though you have this portion of the data, you send it back, CPU continue, but you still need to fill up the following part of the block.
So it's just that you're fetching a block non-sequentially?
Non-sequentially?
Like, I guess,
What is non-sequential?
I'm not sure. I guess typically when we get data, we would get it from, I don't know, from left to right or right to left, but I'm not sure what that means exactly.
Yeah, generally, because this is the block address, you
Right.
index starting from the first byte.
Right,
Typically,
yeah.
you start from the first
But now you
byte.
just kind of jump in the middle
yeah, but
somewhere.
idea is to jump from where you really need. For example, this one, if it requires just this portion of the data, I will start fetch this one first, and then I fetch the other remaining bytes. So this idea is pretty straightforward. Try to restart the CPU execution as soon as possible. And this technique is very useful for non-blocks. What is the reason? Of course, if you have larger blocks, it's going to take even longer time to fetch the entire block, right? So that it becomes even more important to have the critical word first. So critical word first with early restart is widely used nowadays. All right, so this is the 6th. And the 7th. 7th is the write buffer. I know I covered a lot today. I kind of suddenly covers how many? 2, 6, and this is the 7th one. Your homework 3 actually mentions about write buffer. If you get a chance to read homework 3, I know the question is pretty long, 1 page long, but it has a lot of important information for you to solve the question. And the homework 3 also mentions about write buffer. This is exactly what I'm going to talk about. Hopefully today, maybe I don't have enough time to cover the entire story about write buffer. What is the idea? What is the motivation of write buffer? Why do we need a write buffer? First, let's talk about this. Why do we need write buffer? Think about if you have a write-through cache. Do you still remember last time we talked about if we have a write-through cache, what is the write time? Do you remember? Do you still remember last time I discussed about this? If we have a write-through cache, assume it is a non-write allocate cache. Non-write allocate but write-through cache. Do you still remember how to do the write time? How to get the write time? Anyway, you will have the write p time, right? And then because it is a write-through cache, what will happen? You also need to write to the lower level. So you need to add time of write to lower level. Okay? This is the case that you have the hit. What if you have the miss? What if you have the miss? If we have the write miss, because it is, let me write it here. We are talking about write-through cache and the non-write allocate. Because it is a non-write allocate, so that you don't need to fetch the data to your cache. You can still directly write to the lower level. So this is the equation if we have the write-through, non-write allocate cache. All right, you can see no matter you have a write hit or write miss, you always need to spend this amount of the time. And your CPU have to wait. Let's assume this is a blocking cache, okay? I don't want to make the case too complicated. Still assume this is a blocking cache. You can only serve one cache request one time, okay? What will happen? This will be considered into the miss penalty. Okay, what will happen? CPU has to store quite a long time to wait until you finish this, and then it will continue the execution. So it's going to spend a lot of time, right? This write operation is going to spend a lot of time. And we would like to have some mechanism to deal with this kind of write stores, or say the pipeline stores caused by this kind of write operation. How to deal with that? How to deal with that? Idea is write buffer. We already talked about a lot of buffers now. So besides the cache design itself, we already talked about a lot of other extra hardware added to the cache. For example, victim cache. For example, MSHR. All this used today, nowadays. Okay. Idea of write buffer is like this. This is cache. This is memory. And we just talk about whenever you have a write operation, for example, you would like to write A, you have to consider about the time you write to the lower level, and then the CPU can continue. We would like to attach a buffer to this cache. The buffer will hold any write data to the lower level. Okay? This is the idea of write buffer. It will hold all the data if you would like to write to the low level. So whenever you would like to write to the low level, you will just drop it to the write buffer. Okay? And we consider, once you put the data into the write buffer, we consider you already finished this write operation, and the CPU can resume, can continue the execution. What is the benefit of that? You kind of save this time, right? You don't need to this part. Write to the lower level, this part, this time, you don't need to count it into the CPU store cycles. Because once you throw the data into the buffer, you consider the write operation is already finished. Of course, the write buffer simultaneously, meanwhile, when CPU is continuing the execution, write buffer will start to write the data back to the memory. So let me draw a figure showing this. If this is the time, originally, this is the CPU execution time, and then you have to wait until you finish the entire write operation, and then CPU can continue the execution. But now what will happen is, as long as this is CPU time, CPU execution, and then as long as you write the data, so write to buffer, you can continue the CPU execution. And meanwhile, the write buffer, it is being functionally to write the data back to the lower level. You kind of parallelize the write to the lower level with the CPU execution. So this is the benefit. So see, we shrink this write store significantly. This is the fundamental idea of write buffer. Maybe next lecture I will talk about how we're going to, how the write buffer really works. Okay, see you next time. Of course, we're gonna save this code segment in cache, right? And you have the PC of each instruction, right? What is PC?
Program counter.
Memory address of the instruction. Okay? Why I say we can use the PC to predict. For example, this PC is talking about load a instruction, load a data from the memory, and this data. Oh, I forgot to update one thing. Update R2. Let's just speed up. Let's say R1 here, and you have update R2. right? 4. If we translate this into C code, this is just about you are going to smaller than some number. If we translate this into C code, it is here, or F8. Okay. Any question about this? This is just we translate the C code into this Lisp code, or something code. So what I'm going to talk about is this PCCs. We can kind of link the PC with the number of ways, or say which way you are going to get the data. For example, here you can see we are going to access the array, and how are the elements of this array being saved in memory? It will be, if this is memory, we will have 4 bytes AI here, another 4 bytes A plus I plus 1 something, and this will be included in one cache block. Any question? Okay. Now, if we have the PC tells you the first time when I access AI, it is in the first way of the set. Next time when you need AI plus 1, it will be in the same block, so that it will be in the same way, right? It's actually the same block. You are going to access the same block. Of course, the same block is in the same way. So here we kind of build the relation between PC and the way, which way you will be able to get the data. So one way is to use the PC to predict the way. And but this way, it has a high accuracy when you have some code like this. If you do not have this kind of repeated access about the array, maybe the link here is not that tight. So that we have another prediction mechanism is to do the exclusive OR between the source register and the offset. Or say we are going to do the exclusive OR between the value you have in R2 and the offset. This one is more accurate because how are you going to calculate the address? You calculate the address by adding 8 on top of the source register. Right? Now you already use this to do the exclusive OR and build the link between this and the way. So which one is more accurate for the way prediction? These two techniques, which one is more accurate? Which one is more accurate? This one is more accurate, right? Because how do you calculate the address? You add these two together, you can calculate the address. And now you use these two to predict the way. So this method is more accurate. But when are you able to get the data? Only when you finish the decode stage, right? Remember fetch, decode, execution? Memory right back? You only get this after you finish the decode stage. And when are you going to start memory access? Once you finish the the execution stage, you will do the memory access. So this information, you get it maybe too late, which means it's not early enough for you to do the prediction. PC, you know it in the fetch stage. Once you start the fetch, you have the PC. So that this one, you can get the way prediction earlier. This one, you get the prediction more accurate. So two different designs, both of them have pros and cons. Okay, next I'm going to talk about how can we predict predict. See you Monday.
See ya.
What is PC?
Program counter. It is just basically the address to the next instruction.